Masquera saying Zimbabwe, welcome to our channel Zim Confessions and Deep Secrets. Kana kariki kutanga kukuya no channel. Please don't forget to subscribe. Kana uchingwa garoka subscriber. Don't forget to comment and share this video. Nasmare Zimbabwe takuigirai nyaya ya Buddha, nyaya ya Moses Mpofu pamwechete na Mike Chimombe. Havo varikunzi appeared before the High Court. Justice Pisirai kwenda ninyaya yavo yavari kupiwa muri Zimbabwe. Nyaya yanetsa funga they are saying kuti vari kusungirwa nyaya yekuti vakaexposa President Emerson Mnangagwa. So vaviri ava vane mwedzi yakati 1 day vari mujeri, ndivataura vachiti kusungwa kwavo kuri politically motivated. Chinzi the punishment yavari kupirwa yekulikisa damaging audios aibuda achiimplicata prominent figures. So the first day the opening trial and inga marked by my attentions muri Zimbabwe. Chinzi yazvinomira mushe judge akanetsana na nema lawyers Mpofu pamwechete na Mike Chimombe. Zvakare zviri kunzi vaviri ava vakasungwa zvisiri pamutemo. Nyaya yakaburitswa nemaizimbabwe.com vachitaura ivo vachiti the trial of jailed businessmen Moses Mpofu and Mike Chimombe commenced on Wednesday before High Court Judge Justice Pisirai Kwenda amidst a flurry of legal charges and accusations of selective prosecution. The two men, who have spent months in pre-trial detention, claim their prosecution is politically motivated, a punishment for allegedly leaking damaging audio recordings implicating prominent figures. The trial's opening day was marked by tension, culminating in the judge threatening to take action against Mpofu's lawyer, Zvese Bvuu, for attempting to amend his client's defense outline at the 11th hour. Zvese Bvuu sought to introduce constitutional arguments and other issues that arose just before the trial began, prompting several reminders from the judge regarding the authority over proceedings. Mpofu, through his lawyers, vehemently denied all charges. His defense strategy hinges on a challenge to the magistrate's court decision regarding his bail and detention, arguing a violation of his constitutional rights. Specifically, he contends that the charges are related to failing to supply goods as per a contract with the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Water, Fisheries and Rural Development amount to unlawful imprisonment for breaching of contract, contravening Section 49(2) of the Constitution. At the heart of Mpofu's defense is the belief that his prosecution is retribution for leaking audio recordings of controversial businessman Mnangagwa Chabvondoka. The recordings allegedly implicate President Emerson Mnangagwa in questionable dealings, including the alleged payment of millions for the printing and delivery of last year's election materials. Mpofu's legal team wants the Constitutional Court to determine whether his prosecution is indeed selective and punitive, a violation of his right to equal protection under the law, Section 56(1) of the Constitution. He implicitly denies making any misrepresentation to the ministry. He neither made any misrepresentation personally nor in common purpose with anyone to Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Water, Fisheries and Rural Development. He never harbored any intentions to deceive the said ministry, nor did he ever realize that there was real risk or possibility of deceiving it or to cause the ministry to act upon any such alleged misrepresentation to the prejudice of the ministry. He denies ever making any misrepresentation to the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Water, Fisheries and Rural Development in any tender documents. He never made any representations to the effect that a company called Black Duck Livestock Poultry and Farming was a registered company in Zimbabwe with a valid tax clearance certificate or a valid NASA compliance certificate, stated Zvese Bvuu. Chimombe, represented by lawyer Ashel Mugia, also pleaded not guilty, asserting complete lack of involvement with Black Duck Livestock Poultry and Farming. His defense rests on the argument that the state has failed to establish any link between him and the alleged offenses. Mugia argued that the doctrine of common purpose used by the state to implicate Chimombe is inapplicable in this case. He highlighted the lack of evidence connecting Chimombe to the forged documents, the bid submitted by Black Tech, or any contract with the ministry. Mugia detailed Chimombe's lack of involvement in the various stages of the alleged crime. Chimombe will say that the doctrine of common purpose, which the state seeks to invoke in attaching liability to him, does not apply in the circumstances. The state has not shown how he is associated with the alleged forged documents. It has not shown how he is associated with the bid submitted by Black Deck Private Limited or by the alleged unregistered entity. There is no connection between his actions and that of his alleged accomplice between the time that the bid documents were prepared and the time upon which the contract was then effectively entered into. Under the doctrine of common purpose, it is not enough to simply allege in state papers, both charge sheet and summary of the state case, that both accused persons in connivance did this. It must be clear from onset what each accused person did. It must be clear that the footprints of each and one of them can be ascertained from the war crime scene or plot, and it must be made clear that each accused person was aware of what the other one was doing in order to achieve their common objective. It is only under these circumstances that the doctrine can be applied. Mugia said Chimombe has no knowledge of how Black Deck Private Limited prepared these documents and submitted the bid. He has no knowledge of how the contract between the Minister of Lands and Black Deck. He was nowhere near when the agreement was entered into. He was not present when the goods were supplied to the ministry by Black Deck Private Limited. He never received any money from Black Deck Limited, which were part of the proceeds from what was paid by the ministry. The only time that he recalls is when he attended a meeting in the Ministry of Lands after a dispute had already risen between Black Deck and the ministry. He did so in his capacity as the chairperson of a local pressure group called Economic Empowerment Group, which advocates for, amongst other things, that governments prioritize local companies when entering into agreements for the supply of goods and services. The meeting was way after the alleged offense had been committed, and he was simply trying in that capacity for the two parties to find each other, Mugia said. Adding another layer of complexity to the proceedings, Lovemo Maduku, instructing for Mugia, expressed dissatisfaction with the court's composition, questioning the assessor's age in relating to the mandatory retirement age of judges. He urged that this potentially impacts the trial's legitimacy and called for a review of the bench's composition before the trial could proceed. We cannot go into a trial before a thing which is not a court. We certainly wish to challenge the composition of the bench. We will only plead so that we can start, but we take the view that in terms of the Constitution, the position that the mandatory age of the judge should be 70. If it applies to judge, it surely applies to assessors. This is an important criminal trial, and it should start correctly, said Maduku. The court is expected to address these constitutional issues over the next 2 days before deciding whether the trial will proceed or be referred to the Constitutional Court. The case of Mpofu and Chimombe highlights the intersection of business dealings, political intrigue, and complexities of Zimbabwean law, leaving the question of selective prosecution versus justice served hanging in the balance. The outcome will undoubtedly have significant implications for the ongoing debate surrounding transparency and accountability within the country's political and economic spheres. Ndonya yakabuditswa na nemaizimbabwe.com muri Zimbabwe vachinza panoomera mushe vana Mike Chimombe vari kupiwa mhosva dziri dzavo, maloyers avo vari kufambira nyaya dzacho vachitaura ivo vachiti they were not part of Black Deck muri Zimbabwe. Zvakare parunzi nezuro during trial yaiitika hanzi they requested majournalist abude hanzi because they had sensitive information yanga vanayo hanzi, but the magistrate akaramba nyaya iyi muri Zimbabwe tisingazivi kuti munoona sei nyaya iyi tiudzei zvamunofunga pamusoro penyaya iyi mu comment section.